everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be continuing the work on the Gilded Age natural form bustle gown that I have been working on for a few videos now. This gown dates to the late 1870s and is natural form, meaning it does not have a bustle cage in the back. And last week I went and I patterned the entire bodice. So if you have not seen that video, you may want to check that out first. I will link that down below in the description. But this week we are going to be actually putting together the bodice. So I am picking up just a little after where I left off last week because I have now flatlined all of the pieces, or at least kind of flatlined. They're pinned in place and they are about to get serged all the way around the edges. That is how I flatline. I take my inner fabric and my outer fabric, pin them together, and I do the pins while I'm cutting one of the pieces of fabric, and then I put them and just go along the edges with the serger, and that way they're all finished. This silk dupioni is not going to fray like crazy like it wants to, and I don't have to worry about like the heft or anything either, because adding that flat lining helps with the heft of this project. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do. I am going to be flatlining all of these pieces. There's like 7 pieces in total, I believe. And I showed you at the very end of the last video that I've also marked the darts, and I will be basting the darts, as in basting the lines where they will then fold. I'll be basting those on machine and making the darts and then sewing all of these pieces together. So I have a lot of sewing to do, and while I go do that sewing, let's go over to Sponsor Rebecca for a little word from today's sponsor. Thank you, Sewing Rebecca. Sponsor Rebecca here, and today's video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare. If you've been watching my channel for a little while, you've probably heard me talk about Skillshare before, but if you haven't yet heard of Skillshare, it is an online learning community for creative and curious people. On Skillshare, you can find thousands of inspiring classes on topics including photography, art, productivity, baking, and even sewing. Skillshare recently recommended a class to me called TikTok for Everybody, Script, Shoot, and Upload Your First TikTok, which was kind of perfect since I've honestly been a bit afraid of trying to make TikTok videos. But Josh Otusanya walks you through every little step in how to put together a TikTok video, and it made me much less nervous to try. I can't promise I'll be doing a bunch of TikToks, but I did make this cute little TikTok after watching his tutorial. I'm Lady Rebecca Fashions on there too, if you want to give me a follow. This was definitely a useful class. One of the things that I like about Skillshare too is that a lot of the classes are nice and short. So even though Josh went into a lot of detail in his class, it was still only 37 minutes long. And it's really easy to pause, rewind, or rewatch classes as often as you like. Plus, you can save classes you want to take in the future to your profile so that you can come back and watch those later. And the great news is that the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link down in the description box below, or to use my code, Lady Rebecca Fashions, all one word, will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so that you can explore your limitless creativity. And now, back to Sewing Rebecca. Thank you, Sponsor Rebecca. So I'm in the process of putting together the pieces right now. You can see this is the center back and then the 2 side center backs right now. And I'm looking at how to do the zigzag faux lacing detail. So I kind of think I like this ribbon. I'm hoping that I have enough of it because I really don't know if there's going to be enough in here, but right now I'm going to test it to see if I do have enough, and I have been trying to figure out how exactly to do this. I'm still not sure how I want to actually like sew the edges down. I want to do it on machine because I'm not crazy enough to do all of this by hand. I've spaced these 1 3/4 inches apart. So there's 1 3/4 inches here, and then this is 3/4 inches to the top. So this one is 7/8 plus 3/4 inches. In other words, 1 5/8 inches. Sorry, metric friends. I know you get it easy. And I wanted to put it down a little bit because there is going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm hoping that this will kind of butt right up against the base of the collar, but I will find that out later because that goes on later. But I want to do this now while I can lay it flat because I'm actually pinning these points into my table right now to keep these nice and taut. Of course, that won't work if I sew it by machine. I will have to pin these down for real, but I haven't even marked my spots yet because I know that friction pen does not iron off this fabric very well. So I'm just pin marking at the moment. So yeah, I'm just mocking this up because I need to make sure that I have enough of this ribbon to actually get all the way down to the bottom, and otherwise I have to run off to Joann's. I'm using this ribbon, by the way, because A, you know I'm obsessed with velvet ribbon. I use velvet ribbon on everything. And B, this is the velvet ribbon that I used on the skirt. So this is basically the narrow version of that, and I think it'll look really, really nice. Of course, because it is velvet ribbon, it's one-sided. So I basically have to do this funky little fold over thing on every edge, every corner, because I need it to twist and always be the same side. I can't just like go back and forth like I could a double-sided ribbon. So it just comes down to here, then I pin it in place and twist. I will eventually mark those so it will be easier, but again, I don't want the marks to show up. So right now it's looking very Rapunzel-y, I feel like, but I'm gonna go ahead, test all of this out, make sure that I like it, and if so, I will mark everything and actually like put it in place. My one thing is don't know if maybe these need to be closer together, but I want this to be zigzagged, as in this is not perpendicular, this like, so that nothing is flat or is perpendicular to the center back. I want it to be angled, 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 etc. So gotta do this for a while. This might take a while, and then I can assemble the other pieces with the back. So a whole slew of bad news development on the ribbon front. A, I don't have enough of the velvet ribbon because, of course, I don't. You know, this is, of course. B, Joann's does not have it, and in fact, they may never have had it. The article is showing up as just like article not found in their system. And C, even if they were to actually have it, I think that was actually a full roll because I measured it all out and I need 3.88 yards total, and that was only in a 3-yard roll anyway. So even if I could find another roll of it, there would be a disconnect in the ribbon somewhere, which is not something that I want. So, oh, and I guess the final kicker is that Joann's closes in 40 minutes. So yes, I technically have enough time to get there and find something else, but they don't have any 1/4-inch velvet ribbon on their website at all, even though I just bought that 1/2-inch velvet ribbon in the exact same color, also a Simplicity brand ribbon from them. They don't have it in 1/4-inch. So yeah, that was what, like 4 bad news things coming right on top of each other for this velvet ribbon. So, I mean, I have the option of not doing velvet ribbon, doing some other ribbon. I do not have a ribbon that matches and that is the right width, so I would need to go to Joann's for that. Or I could try to order it on Amazon, but of course, it's so much easier to do this while it is being laid flat. I mean, I could do it after I put the other pieces on. Like, that's not a big deal. I could do it. It's just probably going to be easier to maneuver in the sewing machine without the other pieces on. So I could do that. I really do like the 1 3/4-inch spacing. So I think I do feel comfortable enough to go ahead and mark that so I can at least get it for later. I have it all laid out right now on the table. And so at least I won't have to remeasure, but I will obviously have to pick up the ribbon that I've already laid down because it got like about 3/4 of the way through. And yeah, so I have choices. If I want to get to Joann's for other ribbon, I gotta go right now because they're about to close. But I wanted the velvet ribbon. And of course, if I order from Amazon, there's always the question of A, how long it will get here, because Prime shipping, that's like not a thing anymore, right? Sometimes it's a thing, because I ordered something the other day that literally came later that day. And sometimes it's not a thing because it comes a week plus later. I don't get it, even if you select Prime. I don't get it. So, I don't know, you guys. I'm tempted to try the ordering route and then just, you know, it'll be a little harder to get it under the machine. But I would really like velvet ribbon. And it's far enough away from the ribbon on the skirt too that like, even if it's a hair off color-wise, it'll be okay because it's not close to each other. I think I'm going to order it. I think I'm going to continue building the rest of the bodice, order some velvet ribbon from Amazon, because that stuff comes in like 10-yard rolls anyway, so I don't have to worry about it only being a 3-yard, which a lot of Joann's ribbons only come in 3 yards. If it's a flat satin ribbon, it'll come longer, but any decorative sort of ribbon usually only comes in 3 yards, so that won't work for me. And flat satin just seems so boring after seeing this velvet ribbon. This looks so nice. So yeah, I'm gonna go on Amazon, see what I can find, and fingers crossed that it can get here soon. Well, I found literally one listing of 1/4" velvet ribbon in pink that it was sold through Amazon Prime. It should get here on Sunday, so of course not super fast because today's Thursday, but I guess that's the best that we can hope for. And hopefully that it will match. I really hope so. It looks like it will on the listing, but who knows? But it does look like it's the pale pink color that I'm going for, so hopefully that's gonna work. I don't know if that will wind up being a this week thing now since it's gonna be Sunday, and that's when this video cuts off, but maybe we'll be able to end with that. And in the meantime, I'm going to mark the spaces where I have measured everything out and undo what I've mocked up, and then just finish putting the rest of the bodice together. As you can see right here, the bodice is now assembled, and now it is time to think about, well, some functional things like sleeves, but also some of these more embellishment type items. And one of those is figuring out what the heck is going on with what looks like it could be, I don't know, collar or gathered, ruched, pleated, whatever is going on right here. And I actually found this fashion plate right here, which dates to 1877 and is a very, very similar looking dress to this. And in this fashion plate, we can see both that it buttons all the way up the front, though this looks like it has like double buttons, which I am not doing because I'm not that crazy. But also we can see the collar on this. And we can see that it is basically a like sort of wide but turned down-ish collar, like it's flat to the bodice. This one has a little notch in it, which I know from my fashion plate mine does not have. But I'm kind of thinking that what we are seeing, and some of you kind of went with this as well when we were first talking about the very first video on this project and what this might be, is that this is probably the stripe pattern. And so what I'm thinking is it is a collar with the stripe pattern being vertical on the collar, and that's why we're seeing those stripes, but it's raised, and that's why it's a collar. Really, it's a collar and that's why it's raised. So I think that's what I'm gonna go with. I am going to mock up how to figure out how to get this like lay down collar. I did find another one that is like another plate that has a little bit of a back view, and I think that it's just gonna kind of come around like that a bit on the back here. So it'll be the wide collar and then just come into sort of a laying down, like, I don't know what kind of collar that is called, but basically a very, very small sailor collar where it's laying flat against the back and it's just a little bit curved. So I guess it's good that I haven't been able to do the ribbons yet, because I actually probably won't need the ribbon all the way up to the back. I might, you know, be able to omit the top couple of inches and just not have it underneath the collar. So I need to figure out how that collar works. I hate patterning collars, but you know what? You gotta do it like every time you have a new project like this. So I'm gonna do the collar, and I'm also going to mock up sleeves, or at least a sleeve. And the sleeve should be pretty basic. I think I should be able to use my 2-piece sleeve. And my 2-piece sleeve, actually, it's the same like base pattern as this. But with this sleeve, it does get very wide at the bottom. So you can see how it kind of flares out at the bottom, and then there's like ruffles, or really I guess they're pleats, and then the bow and everything is added on there. So I will have to change my pattern just a little bit to have it fit the fashion plate, but it shouldn't be too big of a change. So I think the one other thing that I'm noticing actually now that I'm looking at this is that I wonder if the sleeve is actually a bit short. No, I think the ruffle is laid on top of the sleeve, because there is a lace trim at the base of the sleeve as well, and the lace trim is below the ruffle. So I think what's going on here is the sleeve does go all the way to basically where we're seeing this lace trim, and then this ruffle is actually on top of the sleeve. So I don't think that the sleeve actually opens. I think the ruffle is just like a decoration laid on top. So I think that is what I will go with for this. But yeah, I'm hoping, I mean, it's late tonight, so I'm not going to start this tonight. I'm hoping tomorrow to figure out both collar and sleeve, and that would be super awesome. I also have not yet done the part that I mocked up. You can't see it, it's off screen, but I haven't done the part that pulls the skirt back together. I am going to wait to do that until I can do like ribbon and stuff, because now we're talking like things that are very large appendages when we're talking about a skirt decoration like that. So that's gonna wait. I'm definitely gonna do the ribbon first, so that'll be like a next week thing when I add that in. I also have to figure out what I want to line that with, because I may actually want to line that like with itself. I have a lot of this fabric left, so I should be totally good on fabric, considering the sleeves actually are the blue anyway, they're not the stripes. So yeah, gotta figure out the collar from the stripes, and then the stripes will also be the skirt decoration. Sleeves are the blue, and the ruffle or pleats on the sleeves are the blue. And I need to make sure that I save enough blue to hopefully make a bonnet for this outfit too, because I don't have any bonnet that looks like this in the fashion plate, and I would love one to match. Don't think I'm gonna be able to make the parasol that matches though, because that's just, I don't have that skill set yet. Someday I'll figure out how to cover a parasol, and I will do this. This is not that day, that time. So I am going to probably just call it a night for now. I will see you tomorrow when we're working on collars and sleeves. So I don't know about you, but when I try random pattern pieces, I'm not always good about like putting them together. And I don't mean the pattern pieces that come from actual commercial patterns, but I mean like when I mock something up, I'm not always good at labeling it and putting it all back together. So sometimes I wind up with a bag of random collars. So that's what I pulled out. There were about 4 or 5 different collars in here, one of which was labeled, the rest of which were not. I think one of them is from like a 19 teens dress that I did a couple years ago. The others, I literally have no idea. So I have been basically trying them on the bodice to see what fits with this neckline. And this one, which was the 19 teens one, I think, and you can see like when I made it for the 19 teens dress, I made it fit by making lots of darts, and then I wound up cutting out the actual collar. So this one is really close, but it is obviously way too big in the back, but like neckline wise, it's really close, but it's not long enough. But then I tried on this one, which is like, it's a half a piece of collar. Like, I don't know what this is from at all. Again, I darted it to make it fit whatever I was working on at the time. And then this was just the back. And it seems to fit the neckline that I have right now, like really, really, really closely. So I think I'm gonna go with this shape of the neckline. I'll double check to make sure I don't have to do any tweaks at all, but I'm gonna go with this shape. And then this is the width that I was aiming for in the back, so that's great. But this is going to wind up coming out quite a bit wider here and kind of getting like a square front. I think the length was almost just about on as well though, so that's really awesome. So I mean, yeah, save your random pieces, but don't be me, label them. But it is nice to have a random bag of collars, because then I don't have to dig through other patterns and be like, what was it that maybe had a similar neckline? So sometimes this actually works easier when you have a bag of random collars. So the sleeve though, I have, again, the sleeves that are just from the base pattern, and I generally, I believe I can, I mean, I have a lot of things where I need to change like the seam allowance on here, but generally I believe I just put these together literally because it's fabric. So that's the nice thing about having your patterns on actual fabric, is that you don't have to make a mock-up. You can use the pattern as your mock-up. So I do have, like the bodice, a lot of places where I say like, okay, well, I need to add 1 inch here, or this is this one and this is this one, etc. And I have all of that color coordinated on here. So I'll see which one was probably the best fit and kind of go from there. Again, I think I am going to widen out the bottom a little bit, like I mentioned. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm probably just gonna like use this and give it a go. So I have made my like alterations to this base pattern that I'm starting with, and basically it's going to taper out here past the pattern by about like 2 inches to be 2 inches wider over here. I'm not 100% positive how the overlap works, because this is a button front and my brain doesn't wrap around things like that, but the good news is that it's going to be hidden with a bow. So like, doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, because there's gonna be a big old bow right here hiding the overlap. And I also have to bring this little corner here up 5/8 of an inch. And I realized that the back actually wasn't exactly what I needed before. So I wound up doing one extra dart right here. I'll add a 1/4 inch this way, and then I had to kind of remove like 1/8 of an inch this way right up here. So those are kind of all the alterations that I've made to this. Now I'm going to take this off of here, leaving all of those darts and everything pinned in place. And I am going to, so for right now, I am going to cut it all one continuous. With the stripe patterns, I may wind up putting seams in. I'm not sure. We'll see. Because like if I do vertical stripes in the front, like I don't think I'm going to be able to get all the stripes to play nicely, basically, is my point. So I may have to do some seams in here. But I'm going to cut it out of one piece of organdy, because organdy will help me play with it with something that has a bit more stiffness like a collar. And once I actually start cutting out the actual, what I'm planning on doing is that there would be 2 layers of silk, the top and then the bottom, even though the bottom's not going to show, but 2 layers of silk, and in between like each of those is going to be flat lined with organdy. So it'll be 4 layers all together, but it won't be like interfaced. I hate interfacing. I feel like organdy does a pretty decent job of acting like interfacing. And because this isn't like structured, I don't think I need to go like the horsehair canvas type route either. Like it's not, you know, it's not a collar that needs to like stand up on its own or anything. It's a decorative collar. So that's my plan for all of this, and let's get going. So I started doing the organdy collar mock-up, and I realized as I was drawing it out from the previous collar that I just wasn't sure about like the shape once it got kind of down to the bottom of the collar. So I just left all of the organdy that I had there in that area, and I'm glad that I did, because I'm still actually wondering if it wound up being maybe a little bit too narrow here. I don't think you can see this at all, but I have orange lines that are drawn in here, which is a 1/2 inch past where the fold of the front is, so like the fold of where the button flap is, if that makes sense. So that'll allow for seam allowance. And then I have a line that's drawn in here, which I think is about where I want this to stop, because it seems like it comes down to almost the bust point. I'm just not sure how it works together. One of the things that I'm thinking is like with this other fashion plate that I found, it feels like the neckline goes pretty low, and it's going to be filled in with like a ruffly cottony type piece because this is day wear. But I feel like the actual neckline of this bodice probably goes a lot lower than what I have it as right now. But I don't want to try this on right now to double check that. I would rather keep going with the collar and the sleeve and then try it on once I'm actually like ready to, you know, fit those. So this is the dilemma though, because part of me wants to cut all of the pieces where it is, because I can always cut it down lower, like that's not an issue, but it would affect the general width. So I grabbed this bow that I had already made just kind of as a, you know, let me look at this type bow, and I put it like on the bust point, and it just feels like even where I have it right here with the orange lines that it's too wide, and that's why I'm thinking that this does need to come down lower right here. So I think I'm gonna put the sleeve together, cut off some of this excess, but otherwise leave it how it is, and pin on the other side similarly, and put the sleeve in, my mock-up sleeve in, and then try it on, because otherwise I'm just not gonna know. Oh, come on, keep your head up. Keep your head up, you gotta keep your head up. Dora looks pretty excellent with that bow too, doesn't she? Look how cute she is. Oh, you sure you don't want your bow? Hey, Dora. Okay, so I have to show you this tool that I just got on Amazon. I am pressing the fronts in right now, which is pressed in 1.5 inches, and then it's pressed in again like that for the button flaps. And this is called a hot ruler by Clover, though I guess there's another one that is not Clover brand and comes in a larger size, but it's like slick. I'm really tempted to try that one too. This one is kind of felty, but like you can just put it in there and like pull it to whatever measurement you need to do. And I'm going to attempt to do this one-handed. And once you have pulled it in place, you can just like take your iron and just like press on the ruler. Like, what? I am so excited to try hems with this. It's a really kind of shorty ruler, like I think it's 10 inches long, so that's kind of the only downside. And then again, like that other one, which is not clover, I'll link both of these in the descriptions, both this one and the one that I think I might also try. But the other one I think comes actually like 5 inches wide. This one's 2.5 inches wide. So this is good for little hems, but the other one could be good for all sorts of things. But like you can do mitered corners and stuff too. I don't know. I'm excited to try everything out, but I just thought I would tell you guys. So this is the clover hot ruler, and yeah, I'll link it down below. I got it from Amazon. So I have the bodice on. The sleeve I think is perfect. It does feel like maybe it's a little bit large up in the upper arm, so I might have to take a look at that. I forgot to take a look at it in the mirror before turning on the camera, but yeah, it might be a little large in the upper arm. The lower arm feels great. So I did increase my pattern width on the lower arm by like 1 inch total, basically 1/4 inch on each side of each pattern piece, so 1 inch total. And I think that will make the slightly wider sleeve bottom that I want from this sleeve. So that's great, but yeah, I will have to take a look right up here. And then as far as the bodice goes, I do think that the neckline is too high. I'm pretty sure it needs to come down at least 1 inch, which is kind of like goes against my thinking on where necklines should be because my chemise is right there. So like, yes, it will be filled in with stuff. So that's why I can bring it down. But yeah, it's weird to wrap my head around. There is a cat right here who is needing so much attention, but I'm wearing silk. And so I can't pick her up because she will claw this bodice and make runs all over it. But just know that any noise that you hear is Dora just out of frame. And I know that you wish she was in frame, but at least you saw her already earlier. If she launches herself across the room, she'll be in frame. Anyway, so I am going to play with the idea of lowering this just a little bit. I am, though, I think I'm liking the collar shape. It's just that it's too wide here, and it's because it's too high up at the top. But like the rest of this shape, I think it's working. Just as a sort of example, once I put the bust bow on, my bow I think will be a little bigger and it will have tails, but like the bow would sit kind of right there on the bust. So it might be a little bit long, but this does also have the seam allowance on the bottom. So folding that up, I think with tails and with the seam allowance folded up, I think that the length where it goes down to is actually pretty good. It's just this top length that needs to get cut down, which of course makes me nervous because it's cutting into the silk that I've already made. Okay, this cat needs attention. You are creating all sorts of Hey, let go of my dress. Cats. What are we supposed to do with them? I'm gonna go fix this. So I've had a little look at the upper sleeve now, and I think the main reason that I'm getting the wrinkles is not actually a size issue. It's that it's about a 1/2 inch rotated backwards from where it should be. So it just needs to rotate a little bit forward because like my elbow is not aligned right now. So of course, when I held it up, it was. When I was bending my elbow in the mirror, yeah, my elbow's not aligned. The seam is right here, my elbow's right here. So I need to just rotate it about 1/2 inch. And then the other thing is that I think I can take out about 1/2 inch of width up at the top too. I had just a little too much ease where like it's bordering on gathering. And I think that taking that a little bit out, maybe not even a full 1/2 inch, maybe we're talking like 1/4, 3/8 of an inch, just taking a little bit out of like the back portion in the back seam, basically. Taking it out there, I think will just totally fix that tiny little bit. So it's very, very close, but not quite. And I do, of course, have to keep in mind that right now it is just the lining, the flat lining, it's just cotton sateen. So of course that has a lot more give than once it's the silk, but it just does seem like there's a little bit extra that I don't want. I almost wonder also if this is actually too long on this side. I think I need to take out about a 1/2 inch of length between the elbow and the armpit on this side. This side, I think we're fine, but I think this side we're getting that crinkle because it's a little bit too long. So tiny tweaks to the sleeve, but I should still be able to use this piece just fine as the flat lining, so that's great. I will make those. And then I drew in a new cut line, and I'm going to do the same on both sides. One of the things that I forgot when I did this was because it has a 1 inch overlap, it should be like flat at the top for 1 inch, because otherwise it will V itself, it'll like cross itself and it won't meet up. So that will also help that. And I'll just sort of taper it out as I go up the neck to about there. So yeah, pretty easy fixes. I think that'll be good. One other issue though that I am noticing. I'm gonna try to get this all in frame, but my darts, they're taking out too much fabric right now. Thought I did them the same as when I had this in the mock-up, but yeah, it's roll tight right here. Just like right through this little bit right here. So I need to remove some of the fabric in the darts so that this can button just fine. But I have to admit, I'm kind of tempted to do the buttons and buttonholes first. I know I shouldn't. No, I'm gonna fix the darts first, then do buttons and buttonholes. But I might start doing buttons and buttonholes tonight. I think I'd like to get the sleeves on first, but at the same time, like if I have less attached to the bodice, it is easier to maneuver in the buttonholes in the machine. I don't know, there's gonna be so many buttons on this bodice. I'm gonna go crazy. So I know that once I get into like the mode of buttons, that's gonna be a couple of hours right there, and I'm not even talking about sewing them on. I'm just talking about making the covered buttons and doing the buttonholes. It's gonna be at least a couple of hours. So yeah, lot to do. I'm gonna do my small sleeve tweaks and cut the neckline, and we'll see what that fixes. Okay, I think I have fixed everything. So lowering the neckline to there and now having like where it overlaps that 1 inch, I think that was pretty perfect. This will still have the seam allowance taken off of it. I'm tempted to even go a 1/2 inch lower, but I think I'm gonna leave it as is. And then maybe once I like actually have the silk collar, then I could always cut it down lower if I really need to, even just before binding it or something like that. Because that's my plan, is to just put the collar on flat and then just bind the edges and do that by hand. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it as is for now, because it just makes me a little nervous. I also took in that 1/2 inch on the back sleeve, and then I rotated the sleeve over and I shortened the front by a 1/2 inch, all of which I think totally fixed the fit. Like, yeah, I think my elbow is, my elbow might still be a 1/4 inch off of rotation, like where the elbow is, but it's so close. And I'm not seeing like all those huge wrinkles like I was before. They're still a little, but I don't want it to get too tight. Again, I think I'm gonna make it up this way in the silk. I can always tweak it a little once it's in the silk, but having the silk on there, because it is a completely non-stretch fabric, it just changes a lot. So yeah, I'll make it up in the silk and then I will see, but otherwise it definitely feels like it's a lot better. And then the other thing is that I fixed the darts on one side. So I fixed them on this side. I did not yet take out the basting stitches, so you can see all of the basting stitches, but I think you can hopefully see this if I back up enough, where like this side is now laying so that this overlap, the center, is exactly center and everything is nice and smooth right here through the hips. Whereas this side where I still haven't fixed it, like it comes to the waist and then it just falls away. So I just need to do what I did over here, and take out the basting stitches, because now they show, since the dart's a lot smaller, and it's even actually shorter too, one of the darts. And yeah, and once I fix that on the other side, then that should fit great. So I'm going to do that fit thing first, and then I am going to cut out the sleeves and the collar in the silk. I still am a little torn on whether, like, direction of stripe. I think I'm just gonna have to lay this out on the silk to see what it does with the stripe direction. I mean, the silk is such a subtle stripe, but it is there, and if one is going like straight down and the other winds up going way off, then it's obviously going to look weird. I also don't know that I love the fact that if this part's vertical, the back part will be horizontal. So I'll see how that goes, but I've got some more fiddling to do, and then I will show you what that looks like once I have fiddled it correctly. I'm not sure why I thought the stripes would go the wrong direction, because they don't. They're fine. They're still vertical. I think that's going to be just fine. So this is the original piece plus one piece. I'm going to cut out 2 more of these, and I'm also going to make a pattern for this. I have serged the silk to the organdy on both pieces and sewn around the outsides. Now I'm going to go and clip all of my corners and clip into the curve so that I can turn this right sides out. All of my sleeve pieces are now flatlined and ready to be assembled. They are flatlined with cotton sateen, by the way. They're ready to be assembled. I've been debating so hard about quitting for the night because it is 1 in the morning, but I don't have to wake up early tomorrow. And I really wanted to be able to put the bodice back on with like sleeves and collar. And the collar is done, ready to be pinned on the bodice, but the sleeves are obviously not. However, I'm hoping that they won't take me that long to put together. So I think I'm gonna push through at least like another half hour, see if I can get there. Well, it's way late, as in like past 2 in the morning, I think, but the sleeves are on and the collar is on. The sleeves, I love. I think they're fitting perfectly. They feel super comfortable. They look good. I like the contrast. Super, super happy with the sleeves. Oh, by the way, I also fixed the darts and that seems to be working now as well. So that's great. The collar though, I am not liking it. I don't know. For one thing, it's just incredibly plain. Like so boring. I mean, like you can hardly even see it on the bodice. The overlap feels weird. Like, I mean, it's the right dimensions, but the overlap feels weird. And this is where like the buttons will be, but it feels weird. Now, granted, it will be covered with a much larger bow than this. This is just my stand-in bow that was, I think, from Cinderella. But I don't know. I'm a little worried, like, A, I don't think the bow's enough because it's still, like, it just blends in with the bodice over here. It needs trim. Absolutely 100% needs trim. I'm kind of wondering if maybe, like, stripes of the velvet ribbon, possibly. That could maybe be an option. But, yeah, I'm a little disappointed with the collar. And, of course, the velvet ribbon that I'm using on the back doesn't get here until Sunday, and I was planning on doing buttons and buttonholes tomorrow and binding the neckline edge, but I feel like, I mean, if I just do one stripe of velvet along the outside, I can definitely do that while it's still in the bodice. That's not a problem. But if I'm doing like multiple, which is kind of maybe my thought, that's going to be really challenging to do while it is on the bodice. Like, it'd be much easier to just take off the basting that's on here and then do the stripes. So I don't know. It's also doing a weird like bubble thing. Do you see that? I think that a lot of that is due to seam allowance, I'm hoping. Because, I mean, the seam allowance is still there. Like, this is going to get bound down, and so it's running up against my neck. So I think that that is hopefully the problem. But I don't know, to be honest, if that is the solution. It goes away when I unpin the bodice, but then I'm not getting quite enough overlap as I wanted. It may be that I need to have a little less overlap, because that takes me down to about 3/4 of an inch where I wanted 1 inch. But yeah, it is definitely lackluster, this collar. So I think my change of plans tomorrow is I think I'm going to do the trimming on the sleeve. So that's going to be the little ruffle panel that goes like this. And then I think it goes, yeah, it goes around at least this part of the sleeve. I'm not really sure if I should have it go like here and then maybe all the way around. I think that's probably a better idea, to start it here and then have it go all the way around. And then there'll be lace trim on the edge, and of course I do have to hem these. And I feel like maybe a bit of piping at the very top of the pleats. It just seems like there's something detail on the fashion plate where I feel like maybe a little piping detail on that ruffle. And then I can also start making bows, I guess. That's not a problem at all. But yeah, I had definitely planned to do buttons. I can start making the buttons. That'll take a long time. So yeah, okay, plan for tomorrow, sleeve trimming and finishing the sleeves, and make 500,000 buttons. Okay, not that many. Make like 50 buttons? I don't know. Make a lot of buttons. In any case, it's late. I'm going to bed. Good night. It is now Saturday and I'm working on the covered buttons for the front of the dress. And I want to show you how to do these covered buttons, but to be honest, I'm having a bit of a problem with them. Nothing to do with how to make them, just that I'm using the blue silk taffeta, the same stuff that's the underskirt and the sleeves. And as I'm using this silk in the little button maker kit, it is actually pulling either the warp or the weave, I'm not really sure since it's a little round thing, of the silk. And so I don't know if this is going to show up at all on here, but hopefully maybe you can see on the edge there where it is just kind of like, it looks very shiny because what you're seeing is the button mold where it's opening the weave of the silk and you're seeing kind of the button mold underneath. And I'm just not sure what to do about that. It's on the edge, so like I don't know if it's going to be super noticeable, but I also feel like it's going to make these degrade faster. So I have to have a think about that, but then I will show you how to make these buttons as I need to make a lot of them. Okay, I think I got it sorted. I realized that if I do it with 2 layers, it does not seem to happen. And it also gives a really nice, just like clean finish to the buttons. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that. Of course, it's gonna be more work because it means cutting out twice as many circles, but this is what I had to do with the tea gown last year as well. So I guess I should be used to it. So let's take a look at how to make some covered buttons. Okay, so first off, this is the pack of buttons that I ordered. I got these from Amazon. Now, if you are in like Joann's, you can get these sort of kits, but they only come with, what, 6, 7 buttons in a kit. So that was not gonna be enough for what I needed. So I went ahead and ordered from Amazon. I will link this down below, but it came with 100. And it came with this little guide, which I guess it's the same one for like any size of buttons you get. These are 1/2-inch buttons, and that means size 20. So you just cut out the size template that you need. That's how big your fabric pieces are going to be. And then these are instructions as well that it comes with. So what I have been doing is I have been drawing circles with my little template right here. I've been drawing circles on my silk. Now, because I'm going to use these as 2 layers at once, basically the way I'm going to cut these out is just leaving them attached where they meet. So like these 2 will be 1, these 2 will be 1, these 2 will be 1, etc. And to cut them out, I use these curved scissors. These are embroidery scissors made by Ginger. Highly, highly recommend these. I love them for everything. Snipping your threads, embroidery, cutting out round little pieces, etc. I will also link these down below. They are also available from Amazon. And I love these. These are my second favorite scissors beyond my regular cutting scissors. Heck, these might even be number 1. So let's go ahead and cut some of these out and I will show you how to actually make them. Now we're going to take the little molds that these kits come with, and we're going to take the 2 circles that are connected, fold them where they're connected, and lay this on top of the mold, centering it over the mold. Then we're going to take the rounded side of the button and put that center and push that in. If you have trouble pushing that in with your finger, because that can actually be a little painful, you could use something like the end of a pen to help you push that into the mold. Then you're going to tuck all of the little fabric flaps over the mold as well. You can also use a pen to help you with this. And you just want all those little edges in so that it looks like that. Then you're going to take the back side of the button. So this is the side with the little loops. And you're going to put that over. And you're going to take the little presser thing that looks like this and put this over the back like this. Then you just press down and it will sort of pop itself into place. Occasionally you won't get that pop reaction, which is why my finger went over, because I did get the pop reaction. If you don't, you just need to press a little harder. You can rock it back and forth. You can use that back end of the pen. And then you just pop that button out. And you have a lovely little button. Now let's go ahead and make like 50 of these. I now have 33 buttons made. Normally with the ones that you get from Joann's, I would make extra because they tend to have a tendency to fall apart. I'm going to see how these do and see if I will need to make more. I'm not going to make them right now because my thumb hurts. That took a lot out of my thumb. So yeah, 33 for now. That should get me to be able to space them about like 1 3/8 inch apart. So completely unrelated to buttons, but I have mocked up a collar decoration that I think looks really nice and will separate the collar from the bodice. So this is my ribbon that I already had, not the ribbon that is coming tomorrow, but this is velvet ribbon, 2 strips of velvet ribbon with a opening between, gap between, and then some lace. This is the lace that I plan to stick around the bottoms of the sleeves. So I think having an echo up there will be nice. And then having this stripe design actually kind of is like the stripes on the fashion plate. I mean, it's not because this is velvet ribbon stripes, not like the fabric or whatever, but I think that that will do a nice job of like giving it that more texture and difference and everything. And then the stripes will match across. I don't know if that will solve my whole why does this collar look weird problem, but again, hopefully most of that will be covered by the bow. However, right now I'm going to go ahead and hem the sleeves and then probably gather up a bit of this lace and add it to the bottom of the sleeve. So I will be doing the sleeve hem by hand. The sleeve hems and the lace is now all complete. So now I'm going to do the pleats that will go up the arm here and go around. I'm going to cut them to 3.5 inches wide, which will leave me with a 2.5 inch wide pleated section. Maybe a little bit wide, but I think we're going to be pretty close. And I'm going to finish the top with piping. I'm not sure how much I need to make. I think I'll take a measurement around the sleeve cuff, plus up the sleeve a bit, and then multiply that by 3 times 2 for 2 sleeves, and that should give me how much I need to create with the strips. I have started with prepping the strips for the sleeve pleats. As I mentioned before, they're 3.5 inches wide. They're 49 inches long total. And this one I was able to cut using the selvage on one edge, and it's all just one continuous strip. This one I had to join 2 strips together, and then the top was not selvage, so I serged it. So otherwise this taffeta frays a lot. And now I have turned a narrow hem along the bottom, and I've also turned narrow hems on the sides, and now I can just start pleating them up. I'm going to be pleating them so that none of the pleats overlap. That's why I multiplied the length I needed by 3, and I'm going to be doing small pleats no larger than 1/2 inch. Well, I've pleated it up and then I've just sort of pinned it in place, but unfortunately I made it too short. So I don't know if I overlapped the pleats like too much or at all, since they weren't supposed to overlap, or what, but this really should extend up the arm to like at least about there. So I'm gonna have to just kind of make some of the pleats less deep. The other thing too is like here in the corner, I wasn't sure how to do this, but by turning it, by doing normal pleats and then turning it, they've just kind of opened up. So I need to make them actually angled, like I need to pleat it in that way. So I'll have to do some fixing once I do make it long enough so that it's deeper up here than it is down here, so that these are still pleated basically. This should now be the correct arrangement for the right sleeve. So I basically just made these really deep up at the top and I widened all of these out to get the extra length. These I left the narrower width, but they go up the arm and I don't know, I liked the narrower width. So this should now be enough to go around the bottom of the cuff, and then here's where it goes up and the side of the cuff. So that should be great. Now I've got to do the same thing except opposite with this strip. The ribbon just arrived and I just pinned some in place to see what it would look like. It's definitely a much brighter pink than the other velvet ribbon that I had, which is like almost not even pink at all. But to be honest, when looking at it with the tassels, I think it's going to be better with the tassels than that other pink. It's just that it's a slightly more baby pink than like what's down on the bottom of the skirt. But since it's going to be close to this and not close to that, I suppose that's fine. So I may switch gears now. I'm still only have the one side pleated for the sleeve trim. I may switch gears and work on this instead. We'll see. I now have 2 sleeves worth of pleats. I am going to baste this in place, and then I'm going to take piping, which I haven't made yet, but you've seen me make piping. I'm going to make some piping and take that piping and put it on the top edge so that I have a nice clean finish. Then on that little like in the ditch piping, I'm just going to top stitch this to the sleeve. Now, of course, the sleeve is already stitched, so this may have to be done by hand. We shall see. So this is what it looks like with the piping applied, and before we can actually turn the piping over, we have to A, clip the seam allowance over here in the corner, and then B, we actually have to remove the basting that is going over this corner right here, because the basting is preventing this from turning. Like it won't loosen up like it needs to. So we have to, yeah, clip this and especially remove those basting stitches, and then this can be pressed flat and over. So I've been working on pinning the sleeve pleat bits in place, and I pinned this one first, and I put it like a little bit farther this way up the arm, and it just seemed too far up the arm. It was giving me like a lizard feeling, and I just wasn't loving it. So then I decided to put this one 1 inch farther this way on the arm, and now it's just like hanging off the edge, and I don't like that either. So I think I need to meet in the middle and do 1/2 inch farther than this and 1/2 inch closer than this one, and that should give me the right place. I have also realized that there is probably 0 chance that I can sew this by machine, because generally speaking, now I did widen this sleeve cuff a little, but generally speaking, the ends of sleeves cannot fit on the free arm on my machine, unfortunately. Like, I don't know why that is. Why didn't they invent a sewing machine, maybe there is one, that has a free arm that's like the size of a wrist? That makes sense, right? In any case, I'm gonna have to sew this by hand. So that's gonna take a really long time, and it's 9 p.m. on Sunday, which means that's the end of this week. So by the time that I see you for next week's vlog, I will have sewn these on by hand, and they will be halfway between where they are right now. But that's it. So this week, I mean, we got pretty far. We put the bodice together, we did some sleeves, we maybe will figure out the collar, who knows, and I'll be doing the velvet detail and everything on the back next week as well. So I mean, this is probably saying way too much. I'm kind of hoping that I can finish all of the decorations next week. That's probably more than I can actually get through, and I still have to make a bonnet as well. So this whole project will definitely not be done next week, but maybe the week after? We'll see. I mean, we're getting close to the Victorian Festival. I gotta get this done. So in any case, that is going to be it for me for today, for this week on this project. Do be sure to check back next week for more. But if you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon, Julie, and Mirage, and a huge thank you once again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. You too can get your free trial of Skillshare by clicking the link down in the description or using my code Lady Rebecca Fashions. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!